Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started now, which means we just came out of a closed session. There is no reportable action. Calling this meeting to order, 4:30 p.m. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Barry, you want to lead?
Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We get a roll call.
Director Diamond,
Here.
Director Horvath,
here.
Director Hetherington, here, Director Odette, here, and Director Rolfe. Here.
Awesome. Speaker piece reminder, we were looking into making a decision about this in our recent strategic meeting, but we wanted to wait until we had a full board on how we will move forward with that. So with everybody's consent on that, we'll just move on now. Special orders of business. Any special orders of business? Any modifications to the agenda? Board, staff, public? Nothing? All right, let's open the public comment period right now. This is an opportunity for 3 minutes to speak on any item that is not on our agenda. If you'd like us to know who you are and you're not this man, let us know who you are, because we know who he is. Go ahead, Rick.
My name is Rick Stevens. I live in Truckee, and I used to be somebody. I'm really here to comment on Dollar Creek crossings, which in hindsight was maybe one of the biggest mistakes I ever did in making motions. We put $500,000 into Placer County's purchase of 11 acres uphill from Dollar Point. The idea was to do housing, and Placer County proceeded to pick somebody who tried to do 204 low-income housing, driving all of the neighbors crazy. And so that was in, let's say, September of 2019. To date, not a spoonful of dirt has been moved, and that's a long time ago. This is on the Placer County Board of Supervisors agenda for Tuesday. I'm not sure what they're going to discuss. I think they've done a new plan that is much more sensitive. I've seen it in the past. I don't know where going forward, but I'm already starting to see next door comments about let's just leave it open space. And if they don't build, the contract says the board gets our $500,000 back. And I'm not, maybe you ought to ask for it now. I don't know. Nothing's happened. The biggest problem is doing big projects gets a lot of controversy. Accessory building units, you can get those through. When you do a big project, it just gets too much light. And this is happening next Tuesday. I've been informed that some of your staff are meeting with the county on Friday. I haven't read the agenda because it's not published till Friday, and I just think that this is $500,000 that hasn't worked. And I made the motion and sponsored this, and I was totally in favor of it, and I think it's possibly not a good thing that I did. Maybe it was the right idea at the time, but it's not. So that's my comment. And I have 39 seconds left, and I quit. Good night.
Thank you for your comment and your 8 years of service to this board. Any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Tal Fletcher. Live nearby. I don't know if this is the right time for the public comment, but just wanted to say I went to the Noise and Sustainable Aviation Fuel Symposium in Las Vegas. Was that 2 weeks ago? Really appreciate the opportunity that the board and staff created, and had a good time doing it. I don't have a formal presentation from it. I wasn't asked to, and I didn't do it on my own, but just want to let you know I really enjoyed being there, learned a lot. Happy to talk, not in this 3-minute public comment session, but happy to talk with any of the board members, with staff, with the community. I think there's a lot of really good things going. I went mostly as with a focus on noise, but was surprised to see some really cool stuff about sustainable fuel that's going on around the industry. I think it's we're not quite there yet, but really encouraging to see some progress being made and investments being made, and airports trying it. And I know we're doing a lot on sustainable jet fuel too. One idea I just wanted to float, again, not knowing if this is the right time or moment to suggest it, but as most of you know, I'm a real estate agent here, and I feel after having gone to the noise symposium and been to dozens of these meetings, and I'm pretty aware of the topic, maybe our local real estate industry and the 500 or so agents that are part of it could do a better job of doing a better disclosure in the house search, house escrow process. Seems like there are people who buy homes here and hundreds of pages of disclosures, and they DocuSign and they move through it, and now they own the house. They might not have read the 3 lines of fine print that say there's an airport here and it makes noise and sometimes planes crash. I think as a guy who shows up at these meetings, as a pilot, as a hangar tenant, as a real estate agent, as a community member who's concerned about all this stuff, I'd be happy to be involved with a process that maybe creates a more robust disclosure that we could all use in our industry. So when people buy homes here, they aren't maybe as surprised by the fact that there's an airport. As most of you know, I see this airport as an amazing asset, as a really positive attribute of our community, but there are some downsides. I'm well aware of those, and happy to formalize that in through the real estate process if anyone thinks that would be a good idea. So just wanted to float the idea here, and we can talk more later. But bottom line, thanks for sending me to Vegas, and I learned a lot and had a good time. Thanks.
Thank you, Tal. I think I think that's agendized next month for an actual summary of that. So maybe
cool.
You could come back and give some specifics on what you saw.
You know me, I'm willing to talk. So
all right,
anytime.
Any other public comment?
Hello, I'm Carol with the Kids Zone Museum, and I know I commented before at your last meeting, and I have an update, but I'll start. I know, Teresa, you weren't there, so I'm just going to start a little bit review. Our circumstances have evolved since our funding application to the airport last year, and at the last board meeting, I respectfully requested the airport to reconsider funding the Kids Zone Museum's capital campaign project at any amount, and our project already has plans and is well established. Our timeline is moving quickly. We submitted a building permit application last week and expect results in June. We have the opportunity right now to secure a 5.6% loan through the Rural Communities Assistance Program, which supports nonprofits in underserved rural communities. And this is what the rates are today. Phase 1 of the Kids Zone Museum project costs will be $9 million, and we've raised $6 million. Any airport funds can help us with our goal to raise an additional $1 million by the end of May to help us secure a loan and break ground this summer. And even though that does sound a lot, we already have raised $1.5 million this year. Breaking ground this summer is critical to avoid further cost escalations. Open within 18 months of breaking ground and providing quality STEM and play experiences for visitors, and supporting non-profit partners like Community House and Healthy Babies who use the museum free of charge. The project costs increased from $8 million to $13 million over 5 years. We have repeatedly adapted our plans, drawings to manage rising costs. We've downsized, we've redesigned the building, and finally, we've adopted a 2-phase approach to accommodate the rising prices in building. We have phase 1, we've now decided to do a phased approach. Phase 1 includes a 6,500 square foot building with 8,000 square feet of outdoor space, doubling the size of our current temporary facility. Fundraising efforts are strong, but continuously chasing the escalating costs. Delaying groundbreaking another year raises concerns about facing more cost increase, tariffs, and possibly new building requirements and different loan terms. further cost increase could jeopardize building a permanent facility. With a visitation that has grown 30,000 a year, up to 30,000 people over the past 30 years, and many nonprofit partners relying on museum programs and use of the museum, and parents in the airport wanting STEM programs to support 21st century learning, and families wanting sensory programs for their children with disabilities and a place for their teens to connect, we respectfully ask the airport to reconsider funding the project to ensure KidZone has a home to continue serving the community. And if you could please let me know if you need any additional information, and let me know of the status of this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Do we have another public comment? Seeing none, closing public comment. The consent agenda, does anybody want to pull an item on the consent agenda? Anybody from staff?
Yeah, I have, I'd like to pull the number 3, item 3,
Okay,
the minutes. I'd like to modify those.
all right. And
And we have an updated annual report reimbursement. I don't know if we need to pull that or not from what was originally distributed.
is that number 4?
That's 5.
Number
Oh.
5.
He doesn't want to pull number, he wants to pull number 2.
Right.
which
Number
is
2, tab 3, yes, thank you,
Tab
yes.
3.
President Diamond, on item 4, tab 5, you're not required to pull that, although you can. You just request that the motion and the consent be the updated report.
Okay,
So just want to make the board aware that that was updated. We had 2 names on there that were not included in the original distribution, and that has been updated online to include Director Rolfe and Director of Finance Wu.
okay. And does anybody from the public want to pull anything from the consent? Okay, do we have a motion? To approve consent with the modification? Okay, we're going to pull tab number 4. So do we have a motion to approve consent without tab 4, with the modified report?
Tab 4 or item 4? It's
She said tab.
service bills.
Item 4, tab 5.
No.
That's tab 4.
She wants to pull tab 4.
Bills and fees. She's going to pull that. Do we have a consent to pass the consent calendar without tab 4?
Yes, so moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Carries. Okay, tab 4, Mary, you're up.
So I'm just noting that this is a very cryptic tabs of bills and fees, and it's of concern to me because it was not great before, but this is worse, and I'd like more information going forward on these bills. I mean, I can support it, now, but I think it's an inadequate amount of information for us to
Is this the new
approve.
software?
It's a report that is coming out of the new software, but currently we're trying to marry 2 reports together to get it to be what it was before, but we've just been head down on the audit right now, trying to get that finished. So by the April board meeting, we'll have a better report for you.
So by the April meeting, we should be seeing this with more detail.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you. I will move to approve.
Tab 4. Bills and fees. Item number 3. I will second that.
All right. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Action items, 2025 Wildfire Mitigation Project Strategic Initiatives. Who is leading that one?
Just to back up one on item number 2, special meetings that was pulled and not approved. There was a line, if I can pull that up, Lauren, it was a modification that you may have not seen. We missed in the meeting minutes for the special meeting, the board's desire to hold another workshop. And so I've added that to the meeting minutes in red, and we can talk about that at another point in this meeting, but I wanted to make sure that was captured appropriately. That was not previously in the minutes that you had saw.
Okay. Josh, do we have to redo that, or are we good?
Technically, the motion that was made included that item, so we don't need to pull it out. I also confirm with Rob that the updated version is what's currently online, so we're okay.
Okay, thank you. 2025 wildfire mitigation projects.
Thank you. I'll introduce this. In front of you, you have the 2025 wildfire resolution. Not resolution, wildfire projects, which is not this screen, but another one will come up in a second. Last year was the first year of the strategic initiative to invest in large-scale wildfire mitigation. We focused on working with our fire districts and community service districts that have fire departments in the district boundaries of the airport district. And those projects you heard in great detail about this past December with the current status. Those projects are carrying into this summer for some of them. They had 18 months to complete the work. They're well on their way to meeting that obligation and agreement for progress. This year's budget has an additional $2 million for 2025 around strategic initiative wildfire mitigation. The district met with the fire districts and community service districts again and looked at what projects were ready, had some funding, but were still missing funding to do the work on the ground. These 4 projects that are identified on here, with the 5th being a planning effort for future years, is what the group came to prioritize for this year, and that comes up to $1.97 million. And we are requesting, staff is requesting the board to consider this as approval to move forward to authorize the general manager to enter into agreements with the individual fire districts for these projects, or community service districts, depending what the project is, for an additional 18 months starting from when those agreements are signed to do the project work associated with these 4 project areas. The 5th project area is the beginnings of a planning effort. If you go to the last page of this slide, you'll see a map that the purple area is the airport district boundaries. The red areas highlight the service areas for the fire districts here, the biggest one on the top there being the Truckee Fire District. There's a small area just to the right corner of the Truckee Fire where North Star is, the community service district, and the fire department there. The area around Lake Tahoe there on the west side and the north side, that's North Tahoe Fire. The area doesn't show up on here is Olympic Valley. Sorry, it was too small to blow up on this particular map, but they have a jurisdiction area that we'll work with as well. What you notice, though, is there's a lot of land that's not included in the fire district's boundaries. And those are areas that we have not worked with the property owners or the jurisdictions in the first phase last year, the second phase of this initiative this year. So that item number 5, $100,000, is to begin the process of identifying these multi-jurisdictional landscapes in the purple areas that include perhaps the fire districts or fire departments, other special districts in these areas. Alpine Meadows is an example of one that has jurisdiction that isn't currently in the plan, but has work they're working on doing around the built environment of Alpine Meadows. There are other private landowners. There's federal land of Forest Service. It gets into very difficult conversations of multi-jurisdictional prioritization for the future as we think about the next year and the year after of projects that really would benefit through fuels reductions. But the planning effort around there hasn't happened yet, and this is the idea that we begin that conversation with our fire professionals and those landowners to begin identifying which ones should be prioritized as a landscape to begin planning and work on in the future years. So I'll stop there, and if the districts and the fire departments would like, they are here to provide further feedback on the materials provided for their individual projects, or if the board has questions, I'm happy to address those.
Would any of you from the fire districts like to speak to us?
Do we have the slides?
We have We do have your slides that you submitted, and so if you want to do a quick overview on those, I think that would be helpful, if the board would find that helpful. Or if there's something you want to highlight on those.
Sure.
Yeah.
North Star speak right now? Yeah. Hi, I'm Joe Barron, Forester for North Star Fire Department. Appreciate the opportunity to come here. We had a project here we put together for 2 project areas totaling 400,000. On the map that you see, the polygons in the very light green were last year's. The left side was the western boundary, the right side is Highlands View Road evacuation route. That was a primary evacuation route for the upper portion of the district. So the dark green polygons that you see are the ones that are being proposed. And these areas that we've been selecting for work have been based on ground truth reconnaissance as well as wildfire fuel modeling. So the work that we're doing is not only for wildfire prevention, mitigation efforts, but also forest restoration, water quality enhancement, wildlife. There's a lot of secondary benefits to the work that we're doing besides protecting a community. It's returning the ecosystem back to what we like to say as prehistorical standards. Pine-dominated overstory, true fir understory, and that in turn will reduce tree mortality by reducing bark beetle attacks, infestations, dwarf mistletoe. A lot of that will help mitigate the process to make our forests a lot more manageable, more resilient to wildfire, but less cost per acre to manage in the future. So that's the benefit where this funding will go. Yeah, a second. Go through some of the pictures, I think. So there was some of the narrative. So that's an example, for example, in some of the riparian areas. So the quaking aspen that you see is a diminishing species in North America. And so obviously you see potential for ladder fields to get into the forest canopy to have a crown fire, but you're also seeing a lot of conifer encroachment, which is robbing the water. So we're not getting water back into our groundwater system, and the riparian species are not able to flourish. So the habitats, it's kind of an imbalance. So there's a lot of, fire reduction, habitat restoration, wildlife habitat, soil stability, things of that nature. You okay to move through some others? So here's some other examples of areas. We need to go into these areas by hand crew, because there's a water course there, there's spraying activity there. So it's going to be labor intensive, but as I say, you're seeing 10 to 15,000 tons per acre of fuels, and historically in that area you should have 2,000 to 3,000 tons. So hand crews will go in there. I put this picture in there specifically. You can look at all the dead trees, but I thought the arrows kind of indicate the level of tree mortality that you're seeing. And so the necessity to reduce that fire risk of dead fuels and the vertical component structure, but also the amount of tree mortality we're trying to mitigate, to reduce bark beetle attack, to spread to not only the open space common areas, but in the residential properties, reduce forest disease that's in the ground system. And so what you see there in that other arrow to the right on the bottom photo, thank you, was over the winter we're seeing actual bark beetle activity happening, which just mean if we don't start capturing this now, over the summer we're going to have a really big outbreak. And so the funding for this will drastically reduce, the fuels as well as future mortality, which will expand, beyond North Star into other areas. So, any questions as to our project, or?
If it's okay with you,
Yes, sir.
could we hold, we're going to get to the board questions after we make sure we've
Yeah.
got other presentations from the topic, and then
Okay.
we can open it up for everybody.
it.
Anyone else from the fire community want
Thank
to
you.
come up and talk about your projects? Thank you.
Olympic Valley, please, the slides. Good evening, Chair Diamond and district staff and district members and staff. My name is Brad Chisholm. I'm the Fire Chief, Olympic Valley Fire Department. Before I go into these slides here, I just want to This is my third time being here, and each time I say thank you, and that is really heartfelt. Thank you for, on behalf of Olympic Valley Fire Department, the Public Service District, and the community of Olympic Valley, for recognizing the threat that wildfire is to our region, and for you to commit those resources to the projects that we've identified in our CWPPs to make this happen. In Olympic Valley in 2022, we identified, in our CWPP identified 5 fuels reduction projects. I'll go through them really briefly, and then I'll touch on the ones that we're hoping you'll consider funding for this evening. The top one there in the reddish is what we call OV1. It's a 120-acre fuel reduction project that has been completed. The one immediately below that in the green is OV4, and I'll talk more to that in upcoming slides. The blue and then the yellow to the left side, and then the kind of yellow in the center right. That's OV4, and that's kind of a belt, if you will, around the residential area. It's a 150-foot deep shaded fuel break to protect the residential area. And then that little slice in the middle of the pink there, that's OV3, and I'll talk more to that in a bit as well. But one that's not on this slide is kind of in the bottom right corner there, and that's what we call OV5, and that is a fuel break that we're working on funding for in later years, but the attraction of that is that it ties directly into work that Placer County is doing, that the, oh, thanks. This area right in here, that Placer County is doing around the Olympic Valley Park. The Washoe Tribe has some work that they're doing in this area, and then the ridge right here is where the Olympic Valley Alpine Meadows Fuel Reduction Project, which is 1,060 acres, will be in the Bear Creek drainage in Alpine Meadows, as well as spill into Olympic Valley here. So it ties all this in together. This OV1 here will eventually tie into the Five Creeks project, which is essentially from Truckee down to Olympic Valley. Next slide, please. So OV4 that I talked about in the later slides, so that is this area right here. So we started out, this is how it's identified in our CWPP. It shows OV4 here, right above it is OV1 that's been complete, and then here's the belt that we talked about before, which is OV4. And the idea was to work on this and work on this and then do the middle bit here, but our registered forester, after spending significant time in this area, she determined that it would be much more cost effective and efficient to loop these two together, this area right in here. So we came up with this right here. It allows for mechanical thinning, which allows us to achieve a better prescription, as well as be more cost effective. The reason we're doing this, as Joe mentioned, is the same reasons, the flora and fauna and the health of the forest, also to address the wildfire threats. So we're requesting funding for this. You graciously last year provided funding for our OV4 project, but we took this little bit out right here and melded it in with OV2. So that's this project that we're looking for here, this green, green, and green. Next slide, please. And this is the OV3. This was that little one that was the pink in the middle. This, if there's ever been pictures that speak for a 1,000 words, this is probably it. So this is late 70s, very early 80s, and you can see the difference in the fuels taken essentially from the same, not only in the foreground, but in the backgrounds as well. Significant fuel loading. And this is a project that we have $50,000 already ready to go for, but because of some realizations that came later on, which is mostly traffic control, high profile, sensitive area, we're looking for another $30,000 for this. So the total projects between the OV2 and OV3, we're requesting roughly $650,000 for implementation of those.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else from our fire community?
Truckee Fire. Maria Marsh, Wildfire Prevention Specialist with Truckee Fire. Thank you for having us tonight. I apologize for the, I guess my lack, let me say. I can't claim ownership of this project. My superiors are at a wildfire task force meeting in Southern California, so I have ground truth some of it though, so I can speak to our appreciation that the district is considering support of this project. This is an area that's been identified in the Truckee Fire Community Wildfire Prevention Plan, and is a primary evacuation route for the larger Glenshire area as well as Hirschdale and Martis Peak Road neighborhoods. It's about 414 acres of privately owned land, and the commercial thinning is the primary method that we're intending for this area. We're requesting $800,000, which from the district, which would be matched with Measure T funds of $900,000 or more. And then I'll just lean on what my colleagues have said in appreciation of the district's consideration and support of wildfire resiliency in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Anyone else from fire?
Hopefully we have some decent material for me. North Tahoe Fire. Thank you, board. I appreciate being here as well. The decision to provide funding for these important projects is fantastic, and I just appreciate everyone's time in making these decisions. So my proposal's kind of changed, and at this point we're just asking for some fire adapted communities funding, if you will, to support those efforts in Alpine Meadows. Our fire district receives a lot of funding for basin activities that we can't spend outside the basin. And so this funding would be to allow for consistency across what we do in terms of our defensible space outreach, community assistance, and just my ability to be in there, issue tree removal permits and things like that. So basically that's kind of how it's boiled down. At one point I was trying to, use the funding to provide some additional assistance for fuels reduction along the bike path between Alpine Meadows and Tahoe City. But I'm also engaged in a project just on the other side of the river with last year's funding and several other projects that are making it hard for me to, be able to really manifest a good project this year. And I do feel like there's such good planning efforts that the other districts are able to carry forward that it's great to, make sure the money gets used for the larger region. And I also just really wanted to express support for that last project to do some modeling to figure out the best way to spend this money across the region. And so my proposal at this point is simply that. And so it's a $20,000, I think that's 1% of the money. So to provide that consistency there. And then in the future, I will have more planning in place and be able to put better proposals together, and especially as we see how the modeling comes out to determine where we can spend money. So that's just a little summary of where I'm at with the current proposal funding for this year. So thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else from the fire community? Joe, do you want to?
Hi, Joe Miller, General Manager for the Alpine Springs County Water District. So we were a little late to the game, but I did want to mention, that we also have a project in Alpine Meadows of approximately 109 acres that runs directly up the middle of the valley. Ties directly into the projects that are going around us that Chief Chisholm mentioned in Olympic Valley. We utilize the same forester, and we think it would be a good continuity for the entire area to look at any possible funding that Alpine can get to actually pursue that project. We're estimating the cost of that 100-acre treatment to be right around $500,000. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else from fire? All right. Clarifying questions from the board. Greg, you want to start? Want me to come back to you?
Yeah, come back.
Teresa.
Yeah, the one you guys have is not on here, is that correct?
Correct.
And is it ready to go?
It is, our forester says that we'd be ready to hire a contractor and start working this summer. So she's very confident.
So I think what I'd like to do is work with Joe in North Tahoe to look at that project and look at the timing of it, and perhaps phase it over this year and next year so it's not one big hit, and bring that back to you in the next month or so we can still get it in a timely fashion so they can get the work done this summer and fall. But I think we're just started that conversation yesterday, so I'd like a little opportunity to get into the details of that and bring back a full presentation and perhaps phase it over 2 years if necessary, given the funding.
Okay. Thank you.
think this is really exciting and beneficial for our entire region. Anything we can do to, that one photo at Olympic Valley was very indicative. And my concerns with, what's happening on a national level is the Forest Service is such a large part of our region. And we have firefighters. No, we don't have firefighters. Yes, we have foresters. No, we don't have foresters. And can we tap into any of that and do any work? I know it's a lot of work, just even working with CAL FIRE and state lands, but trying to work with the Forest Service on some of this other projects. The winds are primarily from the south and the east, and looking at, and maybe that's what I think this planning, multi-jurisdictional, large landscape planning, I'm very supportive of that, and if that needed to be bigger, because we need to be looking at this on a very large global issue and looking to the west, because that's where the Penny Fire came from, that's where the Cedar Fire from the Onion. How do we tap into that? So, but this is exciting here, and just keep plugging away.
Kat?
Yeah, I had a clarifying question, because a lot of these projects seem to be on private land or partially on private land. What is the landowner's financial responsibility for forest fuels reduction when you're working with landowners?
So, in our community of North Star, we have Measure U, which is a tax measure that we're using to treat forest fuels within 300 feet of structures, as well as infrastructure such as evacuation routes, substations, things like that. And where we're doing the 300-foot fuel breaks, the landowners are matching 50%, so it's a 50-50 match. And so they're committing we have 4 matching partners, and so their commitments are to get that 300-foot buffer for our essential areas, prioritized areas, and beyond 300 feet, that's where Measure U really needs help to help subsidize the cost of that fuels mitigation effort. But we really couldn't get all the 300-foot zones and evacuation routes done without the partner match. That's helped us. And so for us at the North Star Fire, we're also matching my time as a forester, my forestry assistant. We act as the lead agency to get these projects off the ground and make sure they're done to compliance to the forest practice rules. So does that help or answer your question? Or?
Well, it does for North Star.
Okay.
I was thinking more, well, that's all private land anyway, isn't it?
All the projects are on private land,
Oh, they
correct?
all are,
Yeah.
okay.
And so, for example, the 2 project areas have 2 different landowners, and those landowners are currently committed to the 300-foot zone, the 50% match. So they are contributing money this year towards the Measure U projects that are being done within 300 feet.
Okay.
And it's a great benefit to have that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is that anything else?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could maybe add to that.
Sure.
The general, the law basically states that a private landowner is responsible for their neighbor's defensible space. And so beyond a 100-foot zone, there really isn't a requirement for a private landowner to do work. So, unless anyone has any other guidance on that, and so that's part of the challenge is how do we push people to, spend in many cases money they really don't necessarily have on things that they might not really believe in. So that's some of the challenge in bringing this money in. But I will say with my project, the bulk of it is on Forest Service property, and that's some of what complicates my project is multiple ownership. But it is a high priority landscape as far as the river road piece goes. But it's another one where there are a few private landowners there, and they have some responsibility for their 100 feet outside of their structure, but that's really ultimately it. So I'd hope that provides some
that does
additional
help. Thank you.
context.
Yeah, I'll try to speak to this a little bit. It's a great question, and it's a complicated one to answer, and I wish Chief Ment from CAL FIRE, who was here earlier, but he had to leave for an incident up on the summit. Oh. Well, I'll let him speak in just a moment. So it's tricky because our projects as well, they're on private land. But the state recognizes that there's so much work to be done that they can't necessarily do it themselves, so they try to empower the local municipalities to get it done by way of funding, and that comes from the state through CAL FIRE into projects like ours. And your funding helps augment that. The private landowners that we're looking at are large acres, so it's 3+ acres or more. And the state recognizes that it's often hard for those private landowners to maintain those lands, so they want to step in because they realize there's a threat and need to have something done about it. They're not necessarily required to contribute anything, but what we're really pushing for them to do is there's pretty much two main phases to these programs. It's planning and permitting, and then implementation. But what we're recognizing is so important is the maintenance of that. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, or whatever it might be. So that's where we're really pushing the private landowners to come in and carry their weight in. We've done the heavy work, we've done the big lifting, got it into compliance, if you will, and we're encouraging them to be the ones that maintain it going forward. So, and if Chief Ment has something to add to that, I'm more than welcome his input.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nathan Menth. I'm a battalion chief for CAL FIRE assigned to Truckee and North Tahoe Battalion within Nevada Yuba Placer Unit. On behalf of my unit chief, Chief Estes, and our forester and other executive staff members, thank you to all the cooperators. Thank you to the district for the continued support and the foresight to get some programs going. In regards to private property, we operate off of the Public Resource Code 4291. There's a vast majority of public resource codes that we get our authority from to implement to the state constituents. Those constituents are required to fulfill that 100-foot defensible space, the 5-foot, 30-foot, out to 100. Where we've come in into some questions and some concerns is neighboring properties that might not be that might be uninhabited, abutting up against neighborhoods. We've been successful through Nevada County and Placer County both with their government OES hazardous vegetation management program. We've had a good cooperation with those crews and with those teams with the counties to ID and forward that information. Other avenues that we've utilized that the state currently utilizes with our unit forester in particular is obtaining all those grants that are available out for whether it's the private people or the private property owners and or corporations, and I believe that's going to be the CFIP. Multiple millions of dollars every year that the state does provide to as grants to approved projects. Hopefully that helps. Great. Yeah, nice meeting everybody. Thank you. And thanks to our cooperators too.
Thanks, sir.
I'll add just one more thing on behalf of Truckee Fire, and I assume this applies for my colleagues as well, that Truckee Fire prioritizes projects that bring the greatest benefit to the most residents within the area. And that is part of how the Community Wildfire Prevention Plan target areas were identified, and that applies regardless of, boundary or ownership. As we all know, fire does not respect private versus public land ownership. So greatest benefit to the most people is another factor to consider. Thank you.
Anything more from you, Kat? You're good?
Yeah, lots of answers.
Good, you did. Good job. Greg.
I had a general question just kind of around your thoughts around rising costs on a per acre perspective. My sense is looking at these projects, they're right at the wildland urban interface, they're high value, they're in riparian corridors, so it's gonna be a lot of hand thinning, so the price per acre is high. What is your sense of how that's gonna change over the next couple years, is there still such a backlog in kind of these residential areas that we're still expecting to see $5,000 per acre? Or do you think as we kind of clear out that backlog, there's going to be more opportunities for projects where arguably like our dollar can go further and cover more acres?
Yeah, for example, this project is hand crew based on limitations of where we can be, which raises that cost per acre, and we're doing mastication where we can. And we're trying to get everything in a maintenance mode that's kind of where I was talking earlier. If these treatments can get areas into a form of compliance from a wildfire perspective and balance of an ecosystem sustainability, then the cost per acre should be less over time. So for example, you would be treating brush component areas maybe every 3 to 5 years in some type of rotation schedule, and then where you have conifer tree areas maybe every 7 to 10 years with some maintenance. And that's the objective. So that should reduce the cost per acre. But it's like, painting the Golden Gate Bridge, and one is an analogy. You kind of get to one side and you get to your desired level, and if you don't maintain it, then that cost. So that's the challenge, is getting it to that lower cost, but then having the means to maintain it. So there, and there's limitations, with all the wildfires that are happening in the area. A lot of the mills are completely full right now. For example, Sierra Pacific, they're dealing with the backlog of timber from the Dixie Fire, Park Fire, whatnot. So where we can utilize those values of sustainable projects. With ours, for example, where we will utilize a 1038 CAL FIRE exemption, where we can remove timber product, split wood, fuel wood product, as in firewood. And we had one contractor in the last project that was from Plumas County, and so he produced a viable product to Plumas County for a source of firewood for heat. It's really a beneficial product that they use. So does that help answer your question in some way, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm clear on there being, like, once we get land to a compliant state, it should be theoretically quite a bit cheaper to
Yes.
maintain. I guess the question is more like, what is the backlog of would we expect next year that $2 million is going to go, if we hopefully get to do this again, that it's going to be that there's such a backlog for kind of the residential adjacent areas that we're still going to be looking at $5,000 per acre, or is there going to be opportunity to start to expand to more larger areas where we're looking at more $2,000?
And I think that's where Rob was saying, where these this future modeling is to find where these prioritized areas need to be next, and give us that outlook as to what are we facing in the future in cost per acre. If we're managing our areas now, what's it look like beyond our boundaries, where it's a lot more limited for access to or hauling material. I don't know if at North Star we are building a biomass facility, and so that's one component where we hope that is a facet that helps people reduce costs in the long run, to bring the material there rather than go to the landfill or trucking costs. So it's going to be, the further we go out, I think the costs are going to be higher, because you may have steeper slopes, you may need to do helicopter logging, or we have to find some mechanical means to mitigate the threat that's out there. And the thing that we're limited on is what to do with all the biomass, and where to take it and put it. So I wish I could give you a magic wand and answer that question, but the further we go out, I think the costs either go up exponentially or remain at this cost. It just depends on what method of treatment we can
Yeah, I guess I was
utilize.
just curious on the overall trend. So what I'm hearing you say is the further you get away from the road.
So theoretically, I mean,
Yeah.
the more you're away from infrastructure, the harder the more it costs. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah, if I just wanted me to add to that a little bit. So there's so many moving parts to your question, and a lot of it depends on the project itself, where that individual project is. We've got a lot of rivers here, and that means a lot of valleys, and valleys are hard to work in. It's hard to bring machinery in, so instead of being able to do the mechanized thinning, you got to do hand thinning. As Joe mentioned, some places you got to do helicopter clearing. There's also a lot of the planning part of it, which is expensive. You've got the NEPA and the CEQA, what's involved in your RFP. You know, what are you requiring for your insurance levels? Are you going to have to pay a prevailing wage? All these things add up, and they're significant. Is there marketable material on there that can come out that the contractor can make a profit on, and they can lessen their per acre price? I would say that 5,000 acres or $5,000 an acre is, there's plenty of examples where it's well above that. So I wouldn't say it's going to be $5,000 and maybe we can get it down below that. I'd say $5,000 an acre in general right now is a pretty good going acre, but again, it depends on the project itself.
I guess, so two maybe sort of potentially unpopular or less orthodox methods that I'm aware of are, like over in Sawtooth, we had a surprising number of goats this past year. Is that on the table at all for any of these? Obviously, they can't chew trees, but they're great for the underbrush. And then second kind of follow-up to that is prescribed burns adjacent to homes are a high-risk maneuver, but you know what's being looked into that? Because I'm just aware that neither of those are on these projects, and I trust that impact, but they still seem like viable methods.
Yeah, so goats are pretty popular, not necessarily in this area. If we were to use this in this area, it would probably be for that maintenance component down the road. Prescribed burning, North Star's been doing that. There was a lot of that done in North Tahoe's jurisdiction over the summer. There's some issues with that, with just the smoke. There's some communities that aren't happy with the smoke, but we're working with them. We're having meetings with them. Our project, you know, I pointed out the one we had on the ridge, OV1, and then we had OV4 below that. And OV2, we were going to be doing some pile burning in there, but we realized that we needed to get the other two done before. It's challenging, but I think communities are waking up to the fact that it's a kind of a necessary evil, if you will. If you can do pile burning, it's great. It's better than perhaps broadcast, you know, chipping and broadcasting. But yeah, there's just a whole component with that as well. So, and Joe or April might be able to answer that in more detail.
I think you covered it.
Thank you. I'm good for now.
Mary had another question.
Just the sense, I mean, I think we're very lucky and we're being very proactive to do the big chunks. But based on what you brought up and then the maintenance issues, are the 4 fire districts kind of thinking ahead to that type of a funding mechanism? You have Measure U, but for all of the fire districts, are they thinking ahead? You know, we've done Measure T in Truckee, and you have Measure U, to develop this type of thing for maintenance long-term, because, you know, we're willing to do the big lift, but if you don't do maintenance, what I'm hearing, it's meaningless.
I'll just touch on it really quick and then I'll let them talk. So part of the money that we're requesting this time around from the district is to update our CWPP. And in that CWPP, we're looking at that maintenance component. You know, we're a few years into the planning and permitting and the implementation, but we want to have the maintenance component on our radar as well. So.
And on Olympic Valley Fire District's radar to help fund that maintenance, not just always depending on us, but for a Measure X.
Yeah, you're a very important component, but there are many components in funding all of these projects. Yeah, absolutely. And
I can essentially support the same thing. We benefit from a program called SNPLMA, Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act. Nevada is interested in the clarity of Lake Tahoe, so they are willing to invest in fuels treatments over the long term. There's another round coming up available here at the end of the year, and then every 2 years there's a decent pool, and we've been very successful at being able to trust that that funding is there. So that's kind of the ongoing tool, the primary ongoing tool. And then, CAL FIRE and the state continues to have more and more grant funding available to, do treatments, do maintenance treatments. So I know our district and I know the other districts as well are more and more engaged in fuels management around their districts. So it's all part of a larger, greater good that's not going to go away. Thank you.
And, go on.
Sorry.
No, this is great.
So for North Star, I mentioned the biomass plant that we're in the works of producing. Its purpose is twofold. 5% of it's to produce electricity, and the other 95% is to produce heat. And so the biomass that we'll use will steam generate, produce heat for the North Star Village. So we're trying to enter contracts with those entities that we can provide heat to, and the biomass plant would then return, once the biomass is paid off at the sunset of Measure U is the objective, then that would fund the Measure U program, and so the revenue from producing the heat. And so that's how we hope to sustain maintaining all these project areas, is using the revenue from the biomass plant. And that's the theoretical world. Hopefully it comes to fruition, but
Right.
that's how we hope to do it.
And the other question is, and this is the really complicated one, is there's a lot of people who live on a quarter acre who scare me in my neighborhood. But it's a very complicated thing because, all these quarter acres and people who maybe can't afford to take out a tree or clean up their brush, or they're old. And, and I understand the complexities of trying to manage something like that, but I think it's a critical piece that we need to start thinking about how that's being done. People are willing to match funds, but one tree at $1,000 is out of some people's reach. Even though we're a very high income area, we also have people who are just riding along because they've been in the house a long time. And I'm putting it out there for all you smart people who do this to start trying to think, how can we address these quarter acre lots, address entire neighborhoods, to set up a mini JPA where people are willing to put in money and help out their neighbors, because their own house is at risk, not just, So just putting it out there, kind of work on that.
If I could speak to that. So I have been engaged with rebate programs in the past, and a lot of where that gets challenging is, one, the staff time of checking the place before, making sure the work's done in an agreeable manner, and then ultimately calling the place compliant, and then just ultimately hoping that they maintain that landscape over time. But a lot of the first push is, okay, I got 3 trees that need to come out, 2 that are dying, yikes, I got an $8,000 bill. And part of where there's a rub now is just the funding mechanism that would come through a small district. So as a thought and our idea of being able to bounce that money, if you will, through the airport district. So, we have a larger rebate program that potentially available, but it's just going to take a lot of staff time. And then, maybe it's a $2,500 max match. And I think if we could invest or have an availability of $5,000 per property, it could really go a long ways. Just 2 cents there. Thank you.
Thanks. Generally speaking, in regards to the situation you explained, the individuals within the neighborhood who might be either reluctant to do the work, unable to do the work, in all counties that we represent, there are those fire safe councils that do offer those programs. Another to assist with green waste removal, chipping, everything else. The other aspect of that we're seeing and that we're promoting, and that even down in Sacramento, they have chiefs that are assigned to going out and identifying these, are those Firewise communities. So I come up here to mention the intent to promote and get things going, working collaboratively with the counties for providing those services. But in addition to that, all of the inspections, not to mention within the boundaries of special districts and or towns, but outside of that, CAL FIRE in particular is both suppression-based and prevention-based. In the prevention world, our battalion, this engine right here today, went up to Verdi in the SRA, the state responsibility area, within our administrative unit to go out and do LE 100 inspections. So there are means of motivation and there are means of funding support which are outside of special districts and towns.
Do we have any public comment on this? Seeing none, closing public comment, board deliberations. Greg, start this time. What do you think? Convince us.
Convince you. Thank you so much for answering all our questions. Really appreciate it. I'm really excited about this. I look forward to saying yes here.
Kat?
What he said.
What he said. Teresa?
Absolutely.
Mary?
This has been it's beneficial to our entire region, and we need to keep it going and looking bigger.
Okay, do we have a motion?
President Diamond, before we make a motion, just a reminder to the board that we did make some findings, and we adopted this program last year just to help reinforce why it qualifies as a public purpose of the airport, and would just request that the motion this evening make those same findings. As a reminder, you previously determined that funding wildfire mitigation projects further a public purpose of the district for a number of reasons, including that the district is a directly affected landowner. Wildfire does not respect property boundaries, so all mitigation projects protect district property. And wildfires have significant regional impacts, including threats to the public health and safety, property damage, smoke, loss of tourism visitors, and others regardless of their location that affect airport operations and safety.
I got as far as wildfire is.
Yeah, do we need to put?
Yeah.
Could you?
It can be what he said type of motion, if that's okay.
We'll add it in.
All right, do we have a motion referencing Josh's comment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you all for doing your stuff. Okay, Placer County, LAFCO Special District election. We don't have a lot of information on this other than, is there anything you wanted to say to that, or we're just looking for a vote?
We're just looking for a vote for the board to endorse the recommendation that's before you, based on previous guidance from the board last month.
Right, so we nominated Judy Friedman in our last discussion about this. She's there. We're now at the point where we select a candidate that we will, as a district, vote for.
We vote as one.
One vote, and yeah, I would nominate that we vote for Judy.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, do we have any public comment on that item? Okay. Sure. We'll take 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
We'll be back here 5:40. Tahoe Soaring Association lease amendment, seasonal on-site workforce housing. Are you taking that, Rob? Jeff?
I am going to open this. Yeah, so this has been discussed a number of times over the past couple of years. So what I will do is I'll just some of the highlights out of the staff report, and then I'll introduce the president of Truckee Tahoe Soaring Association as a short presentation, then back to the board for deliberation of what the board would like to do. So highlights, camping has historically been done on the property over the number of decades. No one knows for sure, but approximately 40 years. There has not been camping since the 2022 season. That has impacted the financial ability for TTSA to make money, which also in turn creates some challenges for their Youth Soaring Academy. So what they're asking is to create an addendum to their lease for 2 camping areas. Lauren, if you could scroll to the next slide. So in the past, TTSA leased the entire 34 acres in the northeast quadrant. What they're proposing is to lease 700 by 30, 2 areas, comes out to 0.91 acres. This could be done. We've talked about this before. There are a number of variables between FAA, their zoning, non-aeronautical, state of California. We've walked the dog across all the different compliance items by doing, if there were camping, at least 1,000 feet perpendicular to the runway. We could allow camping over there. And TTSA has also agreed to rent these areas at the rent-studied rates that was done in 2020. And the conversations we have heard, it's gone anywhere from no camping. What TTSA would like to do is have camping. The preferred option would be camping for customers, because that allows more people to soar, and it also generates more revenue, which makes the operation more profitable to also support the youth soaring piece. The other option would be, it could be limited to temporary seasonal, say the term housing loosely. A lot of the tow pilots, the instructors, this is more of a passion project. Some of them are not even paid. And so the ability to camp at a very reduced rate, et cetera, makes it all possible, as opposed to trying to find some seasonal housing for the summer. So that is what they're proposing. So what I'd like to do is introduce Mr. Ron Hess, who's the president of TTSA. Ron?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, board, very much for your support of the our Soaring Association for the past many years, and especially the last 5 years we've been a nonprofit. And thank you for the airport management, Jeff and Rob, and team for helping us work through and Vince for working through the building issue. And so we look forward to a new facility out there, which we're going to rent. And we love teaching kids how to fly. So this is our passion. So next slide. And we've been there for a while. We've operated safely. Last year we had no complaints. We work closely with the tower and the airport management. We have a letter of agreement that governs the expectations for each party. That's in addition to the lease. The letter of agreement really sets the day-to-day operational parameters. Next slide. And this is what we love to do. So I have problems to solve, and I've brought those to Jeff and his team, and they've helped us craft this proposal. And so Jeff explained it very well. So I don't want to really go into. We can go to my next 2 slides. It just highlights this proposal is limited to employees and volunteers. And the next slide is a proposal that will help us grow and serve additional youth in the program. This is would allow us to bring our clients for overnight stays. They typically travel from the Bay Area, Sacramento. They want to fly all day, and then they want to sleep at night and fly the next day. So this helps them do that. There's no facilities per se. It's dry camping, might be in the back of your car or a tent on the ground. So there's no infrastructure per se. And so what I'd like to do is, again, thank Jeff and Rob for putting this proposal together in front of you, and turn the time over to David and directors for clarifying questions that I may be able to help answer.
All right, thanks. Rob. Take Teresa, do you want to start? I want to go last. You want to go last? Mary, do you want to go? Okay. Kat, do you want to go?
Greg.
Or Greg, would you like to go?
I can if you up to you.
Because we switched cameras.
That's right.
I feel like the airport has invested a lot in this, helping you succeed over the years with a little blip in there. However, I really appreciate that we're on really good footing. I love the program you're doing with the kids. I know personally kids in my kids' classes who started here and have gone on to get commercial pilot's license or into aerospace technology. And I recognize, it's very difficult to run this program seasonally. And so I'm very much in favor of letting people stay.
Well, thank you very much.
I don't, I can't remember it used to be kind of a free-for-all kind of thing, and then I think it got contained a little bit because there were bonfires or campfires or whatever.
No fires out there now
Yes,
at all.
I understand that. So my experience with everyone I know with SOAR has been positive. I feel like you're very respectful, and it's not something that's available very many places. So.
Thank you very much. Yes, we've been operating very cooperatively with Rob and Jeff. I work most closely with Jeff, and he listens when I bring him issues, and we have a letter of agreement that governs all of our operations. And so I think and I have a start of a letter of agreement, which are our guidelines from 2022, and it covers emergencies, fires, evacuation, and expectations, and we have a place for our guests to sign. So
Great.
We communicate what the airport expects to our guests, and we expect that they'll abide by that. And if they don't, the whole thing will stop. I know that. I know that for a fact.
Is that it for you, Kat?
Yeah.
Greg, any clarifying questions?
I feel my newness on the board with regard to this whole topic in particular, but this seems like a great small business that's operating on the field, and this, as someone who's not a pilot, but as someone who personally did get his paraglider's license and camped at launch, I understand the very clear business value to being able to offer that to your clientele. So I see the case here. I'm sort of curious, and again, forgive what may be a silly question, but Rob, Jeff, what does staff see as potential reasons why this might be problematic?
Let me just give you a little bit of history because you're new. We previously had many acres out there.
34.
Many acres. And people would come and they would park and stay all year. And they wouldn't show up every day to help us. And so we feel this is an alternative, and we were too close to the runway for the FAA regulations. So when we discovered that, and in conjunction with the runway rework, we closed it down, and the rent study came out and said, you're using too much land, you got to pay for what you use. So those things caused it to close down. And now we're trying to rebuild. So that's what's going on right now. But I'll let Jeff respond to the staff.
I will provide no opinion, but if,
I recognize it's an awkward question.
from a staff perspective, there are no showstoppers. We can do this in accordance with name the agency. We've had a really good, in my experience, we've had a really good working relationship with TTSA, with the letter of agreement, working with Tower. There's a draft lease addendum that was in the package. We could put whatever we need in the lease addendum. We would have a letter of agreement that could specify any specific nuances we wanted. And at the same time, we would, at any time, if we became uncomfortable with the operation, we could turn it off. So from my staff perspective, I think the downside is exceptionally limited.
So you're saying adding a clause where it's effectively an immediate out at any time?
I think the way it's worded in the lease, I think we may, I think it's 30 days.
30 days, sure.
30 days.
Yeah. Okay.
But we could.
Thank you.
To the left of that, within the letter of agreement, which would be more tactile of, how you show up with your glider and sign in. We could have something that at any point that, we can kick you out of the campground or off property for any reason at any time. So, long way of saying, I think we could turn this off as fast as we wanted.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, I guess to conclude, again, being new on this feels directly in line with our mission. So that's presently how I feel given the state of conversation.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
Since I get to go before these two, who wanted to go last and second to last. It's a two-part question. I'm concerned about, and this is, granted, this is in the staff report, TTSA leased camping area to be available to any FAA licensed pilot, which to me suggests there's not really much of a limit on this.
That was one proposal.
I understand.
Yeah.
Let me finish my questions for you. And then the second thing, which is I think ties into this, is can you describe how this differs from the situation you used to have, or if it does? On that particular, the anybody level.
Yes. So in previous years, we had people that would come out and they would take a ride. Now, they were not licensed pilots, but they saw an opportunity and took advantage of it and said, okay, we want to camp, and we just want to take a ride. And so this differs from that, in that we're focused on what we need to operate our business and our direct clientele, the people who are coming out there to pay to take rides. So in some sense, I don't think I've answered your question distinctly, but we can write into our letter of agreement the clarity that we require to discriminate against, to include who we want, to make sure that it's inclusive and supportive for the organization. So can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I answer it.
Well, there were two parts of it. One was the notion that it says available to any FAA licensed pilot, which doesn't really suggest that there's any connection to what you're doing. And the second thing is how you envision if we were to take option A, which is to open the camping up to any FAA license, how you envision that differing from the situation we used to have.
Yeah, the situation we used to have was close. So you had to be either a member of our organization or an employee or a board member, and that limited. So in order to make it more inclusive, one of the proposals was to open it up to FAA licensed pilots, and would include the Carbon Club or the other people who wanted to fly in here, land, camp overnight, and then leave. And we could support that. So if that's desired, if that's what the board wants, we want to support that and be inclusive. But we also wanted to in support of the staff's recommendation, we want to keep it modest. We want a modest proposal here.
Okay, and this is the last thing I'll say. So just on option A, to be clear, they don't even need to be a customer of yours. They could be, somebody flies in from,
If that makes us more inclusive, and I know that's important, and it's one of the charters of the organization, we could support that.
and do we, sorry, I didn't say I was going to have only one question, but now I've got a follow-up. Does that get us into any situation with regard to lodging permitting or anything that is not, now they're not necessarily a customer of TTSA, but they're now just here to rent camp space? Is this, have we looked into whether this is a concern with anything?
I think my evaluation of the proposals was in the extension of this return of camping was directly connected to customers of TTSA, not a general open to anybody type reintroduction of camping there. So growth beyond your direct customers or participants in TTSA seems to me to be a step that is beyond what I would recommend at this point, and really just limit it to the customer base.
So I agree with Rob. It's baby steps. So I'm going to try it and make sure it works, and make sure that the team can support it. And that's why we've changed the proposal away from any licensed pilot to be glider customers. So.
And the reason I say that is there are other campgrounds in this area. We're not looking to be a competitor for campgrounds. We're looking to support a on-airfield operation of soaring. And so, I mean, there's a direct connection and synergy behind that. There are plenty of facilities to camp at in this region, including across the street and the Army Corps of Engineers campground that is available.
Okay, Mary.
What, can I ask one more question? Because I don't want to,
It's all good. We're all.
It's okay with you?
It just seems to me from what I remember, how it used to go and what I'm looking at here, that we're talking about a much, much, much smaller space for camping. Whereas
Yes.
before it was kind of like, just
Yes.
drive your camper up and park next to that camper, and it wasn't really contained so much. So
Yes,
I feel
it
like
was,
space
it
is
was
becoming-
uncontained, it was difficult for us to manage, and we saw people, unfortunately take advantage of it. They would park a trailer and then go away and not come back, not participate in the activities, not show up for a month.
Right.
And so this, a much smaller area is going to allow us to better manage that.
Yeah.
And we'll, typical with any campground, we'll probably have a limited stay. We'll probably, in the letter of agreement, limit it to typically 2 weeks. And our staff can work within that because they have other houses. They typically come out, they stay for a week and then go home. So that works out well for us, and we don't have the people bringing their trailer out and then not participating.
Right.
So.
All right, Mary, clarifying questions.
Clarifying questions. The Corps of Engineers has a campground right across
Yes,
the street.
yes.
And it's $20 a night.
Alpine Meadow Campground, yes.
Yep, and it's recreation.gov, and it's open through September 24th.
There are 24 sites.
And there's 24 sites.
Yes.
And if you're thinking to limit it to 2 weeks, they have a 2-week limit.
They have a 2-week limit.
Why would we not want to support the Corps,
We do support the Corps. We do make reservations over there, and then we give them to our customers when they come up and say, "Oh, I don't have a place to stay," and we say, "Oh, you have one over there." So we try to bridge that gap, but it's so yes, you're right. There is another campground, and we've used it in the past. We think this site for pilots, for our pilots, gives us an advantage because they don't have to make a reservation 2 weeks ahead, or they come and all the reservations are gone. Oftentimes our clients show up when the weather's good, and they leave when the weather's bad. And so when the weather's good, we get several people coming up and they say, well, I tried to get a campsite across the street and I couldn't. So we'll use the Alpine Meadow campground whenever we can. And we have sites booked there so that we can support our clients coming in. We think this is an improvement over that.
And just, if I could add to that, I looked at their website today. They have most of the Fridays and Saturdays are booked solid all the way through almost the end of July, if I was looking at the dates correctly.
Completely open.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at it myself.
Yeah, but June and July is booked.
So,
pretty
you know,
solid.
I like to go to Santa Cruz to Brighton Beach, and so if I want to go there, I have to book it 6 months ahead. So if I want to go to Fauchery, there is that aspect of personal responsibility, and I understand. And
Yeah, there
maybe
is,
some of
and
your sites
our clients do use that campsite, but there are times when if that's booked, and they just go somewhere else, and so.
Do they go to other campgrounds? I mean, there's.
No, they go to other soaring sites.
Oh,
And so we lost business. And so we think this will help us with business.
okay. And in terms of camping, do you foresee these being, you know, self-contained RV units, or are these tents, or a mixture of both, or what?
Yes, it would be a van, a small RV, or a tent, or a small trailer.
And when you said that, you know, people used to come in and park, and they would take one ride, and then they'd be there maybe all summer. What controls do you maintain? I mean, I could still come in and do one night, and I could be there for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And
so
paying you $20 a night, I assume you'll be comparable.
Yes. There will certainly be contention for the resource. We'll have to resolve that with policies that will favor the people who are volunteering and flying. And again, those people would be perfect to go over to the Alpine Meadow Campground, where they can stay 2 weeks. But yeah, your point is that they could still abuse this process.
Right.
And I'm going to work hard to make sure that doesn't happen, because it's my clientele that I want to support. And somebody takes one ride, I've got to figure out what to do about that.
Yeah, that's, you know, you get to stay one night if you're taking one ride.
If you're coming to take lessons, you're going to fly when it's good, maybe you can stay the full 2 weeks. So I'd like to come up with a solution for that. That's a great point.
That would be a concern. And there's a lot of history of concern, so that's where I'm coming from.
Got it.
And understandable.
Got it.
I have also a great issue with the FAA license pilot. It's too open-ended.
Okay.
In terms of,
Yeah, I'm happy to adopt Rob's guideline and limit it.
right, and that was in your work thing saying it was 10 individuals potentially.
That's approximate.
And 6 individuals under the other alternative.
Yeah, I try to characterize what I see happening out there on a day-to-day basis.
In terms of the component, the utility expenses, the only real utility expense out there would be electricity.
Yes, so there's electricity to the site, and that drives a water pump. So we have water, electricity, and then we bring in a porta potty. So there's no luxury out there. It's basically dry camping, and you would have to have a lot of patience to stay there more than 2 weeks.
And electricity, is that going your name?
That doesn't go to any of the sites.
Okay.
The electricity stops. If we go back to the map.
The electricity is in the primary lease just for where the old building used to be.
It's just the building.
Okay.
That's it.
The building.
No
So it's not
services,
huge.
no infrastructure, no campfires, no water. They have to walk all the way over to, they have to walk, oops, I got a little laser. They have to walk all the way over to the runway to use our restroom. So There's no luxury out there.
So the porta potties are going to be over at the building?
Right. They service our staff and customers day to day.
I've done dry camping. That's a long walk.
It could be. Could be. Again, the typical pilot that we want to support is they drive up Saturday morning, they fly all day Saturday, they want to stay overnight and fly tomorrow on Sunday, and then go back to work.
Okay.
And so we're just trying to make sure that we can support them in those endeavors.
We're still just asking questions,
Yeah,
right?
just
Okay.
questions. Yep.
In terms of permitted use, you have private pilots, not private glider pilots. You have seasonal employees and volunteers. What are you picturing volunteers to be?
Volunteers, our board of directors are not paid, so they're all volunteer. And they come out and they like me. So an example is I'll show up, I'll go out to the flight line, I'll talk to the kids, I'll talk to who's in charge for the day. There's an adult out on the flight line. I'll say, can I help? I might run a wing. I might help people assemble. I might help people tow their glider back to the starting line. To launch the glider, you need the instructor, the youth, you need someone on the wing, and you need someone to run and get the rope. So there's 4 or 5 people, and most of those are, we use kids. We're training them to how to fly. They have to participate. So the kids run the wing, the kids grab the rope, but there's still adult supervision on the ground, and then there's another adult in the cockpit, and there's another adult in the tow plane. So we can't even run without all 3 of those people, and the youth and the office manager being on site. So that's those are mostly volunteers. We do pay our pilots about $20 an hour. If I go out and get a flight instructor at this airport, I pay between $90 and $150 an hour. So the people that we're out there paying are doing it as a labor of love. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to offer them a place to sleep overnight.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Campfires and barbecues, and so.
No campfires.
Well, they're permitting, the way the lease is written, it's permitted in gas-powered fire pits.
Yeah, so we have a gas-powered barbecue at the site.
At the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where after you land, you come and have a hot dog. You talk about your flights, and then you go back to your camp.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a social aspect.
And how many employees of this nonprofit organization are there?
Employees
Yes.
over the whole year,
Yeah.
about 15 or 20, and they come and go. So they'll come. An instructor will come up from Reno, and he'll fly for a weekend, and then another instructor will come from South Lake Tahoe, and he'll fly for a couple days, and we have we have a ride pilot who lives in Hollister, California. So he'll come up. So if you count all of those people that travel here to help our mission to get the kids up in the air, it'd probably be about 20 employees.
Because I'm reading the qualified commercial tenant is to claim a nonprofit, you have to be less than 20 employees. Sounds like a nightmare from your aspect of W-2s.
Yes. I have to be less than 20, okay.
Is not deemed a qualified commercial tenant, because I assume that brings into effect other criteria. I'm asking staff, because obviously they wrote this lease and for a reason, commenting. What does it mean if there's 25?
Well, they're not all on site?
But they're still employees.
Okay.
I assume when you say employees, Ron, that you're talking about volunteers also. When we say employees, I'm talking about W-2 employees or 1099 folks.
Yeah.
Are you
less than 20? No.
Yeah.
Could I just point out, we do not audit Tahoe Food Hub. We do not audit any of the nonprofits. It's not our role.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the police. for looking at that. So we've never looked at any nonprofit that has employees to see if they're in compliance with name, the adjudicating authority. It's not our role.
I think I was including the volunteers as well. So when you say, when I say employees, I mean employees, paid employees and volunteers.
Okay.
So really about six people that would get the $20 an hour, and they would rotate in and out, and so they're not all on site. And then the rest are the board of directors, all volunteer, and we get a lot of moms and dads that come out, their kids running on the flight line, and they'll say, what can I do to help? So I would count them as a volunteer. They're certainly not paid.
So then the other question is, do your gliders, do you require that gliders have transponders and radios?
We require that they fly within the FAA regulations for the airport here, and that includes radios, certainly, at the tower. Transponders, most of our customers do have transponders. The transponders are not visible at the Truckee Tahoe airport today. They can't see the transponders. What they really need is ADS-B. That's the new standard. We have one of our tow planes has ADS-B, and the other does not. So that's a challenge for me to get that installed. But
And, in terms of then our tower
yes,
can't see that.
the tower can
plane.
see ADS-B. The tower cannot see transponder. That equipment's been decommissioned.
So it on one of the tow planes it
Yes.
can, on one it can't.
Yes.
And on the gliders. it-
Most of the gliders, most of the new gliders do have it.
But you have some old gliders.
Our glider, our training glider, does the PW have ADS-B? It doesn't have ADS-B. So it doesn't have ADS-B right now. It's not an FAA requirement at this airport, but it's the best in class safety, and it's something that I endeavor to add to my staff. I mean, add to my fleet, for sure. It's not too expensive.
It's a safety issue, I mean, I'm thinking of Minden where you had the glider and jet.
It is.
Find each other.
It
This
is,
guy.
and I want to do it, and I'm hoping that I can afford to do it this year.
Okay, those are my questions.
This is questions only.
Teresa, any questions regarding camping being added to their lease?
We're going to debate it after?
Yep.
I only have two. You didn't mention trash in your, what's going on with the trash out there?
Okay, so we have a dumpster on site, and so, and this document, the letter of agreement does specify that they bring their trash over to the dumpster and put it in the dumpster, and the dumpster's cleaned every week. So that's how we handle trash today, and it would include trash for these clients.
Okay, second one is for Jeff, I think. If we can cancel in 30 days, does it have to be for cause, or can it be for any reason?
I'd look at legal counsel to help this draft. I think we could draft it for, I'll let Josh.
Yeah, that language is not currently in the draft, so we would need direction from the board on your direction there, and we'd make sure that's included before anything was executed.
Okay, that was it?
I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with it. Immediate cancellation, because I need to run a tight ship out there. So I appreciate that. If that's a requirement.
That's not my concern, actually. It's more if we want to do something else with that land in the future.
Certainly.
I don't want to have to wait until you do something wrong.
Got it. Okay.
Greg has another question.
A quick one, hopefully. Is there defined maximum occupancy?
We haven't set that out yet. We have the maximum space that we intend to occupy, and so I think it'll be about 12 would be the maximum.
How would you feel about defining a maximum occupancy?
I'd be happy to define the maximum occupancy.
It just feels like we're sort of going back and forth around a lot of different, and if there's a natural boundary and you're motivated to keep space for your clients,
Yes.
if there's a maximum, then there's just a clear boundary.
It's a lot. I mean, a standard campsite per Google and AI is 12 by 30.
That's 360 square feet.
That was my question.
All right, let's,
We do not currently have a maximum defined occupancy,
No,
but you,
happy to define one in the letter of agreement
okay.
and/or in the lease, as you prefer.
Do we have any public comment on this? No public comment. Okay, we have a public comment.
I'm still Tal Fletcher, getting up with another, I didn't even know this was on the agenda, so this isn't a prepared statement, but I'm a big fan of flying, and I'm a big fan of camping, and any chance you get to merge the two, I think is a pretty cool opportunity. I understand you're not asking for a available to the public general campground, but if it's an opportunity for your participants and employees to live in a more affordable environment that's closer to where they're doing their activity or doing their job, I think it's great. Flying's a relatively expensive hobby or passion, and camping is a relatively inexpensive one. And if you can merge the two and make it cost effective, I think that's great. So, as a member of the public, I'm in support of the proposal that I'm listening to right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
all right, closing public comment, open deliberation. I had my, yeah. So opening for deliberation, who would like to start with that?
I can make a few points that would make me comfortable with this.
Okay, go.
I think there should be a porta potty closer because, like she said, it's a long walk and I don't want people peeing on the tree. I think definitely define the max number of sites. I think you should only allow people to stay there if they're flying today or tomorrow or the next day, not you can have the full 2 weeks. Whatever days they're flying exclusively. No campfires. I don't care if the Forest Service says we can.
What about the gas fire?
Camp stove. I'm good with the camp stove, but I don't know about a fire pit.
The lease.
Yeah, currently it's not allowed
It's
in the
not
lease.
allowed per the lease. There's no campfire, period.
According to the way the lease is written.
No. Gas stove.
Gas stove, okay. but not a
I
fire
think
pit.
need a max RV or trailer length, just like any campground has. And make sure we can end it without cause if we ever do decide to do some affordable housing or something, for whatever reason. Just the camping piece, not your lease.
Those are all fantastic suggestions, and I'm happy to support the fixed, specified
Talk to-
size.
if you can
Mike,
talk to the thing.
the mic.
And if I could even ask
Sorry.
Ron, let's let the board deliberate this, and then we'll see if we've got any more questions for you. Appreciate that, though. Teresa, did you have anything more?
Those are the things that would be mandatory to support it. Editorially, you can camp dispersed camping for free for 2 weeks in the forest. And you have to move 5 miles away, and you can spend the next 14 days there. And that's free. And I get the proximity issue, but I drive further to get here for this meeting. Like, I don't care if you have to go to Boca, that's not my problem. And then also editorially, I fully support this in theory, but I also think it's not our responsibility to make them profitable. That's totally not part of our mission, to subsidize our tenants. And that's it.
Clarifying question. I think I'm in agreement with you in the spirit of we want active pilots having access to this space. Correct me if I'm wrong here, pilot, but the realities of weather is you're probably not going to be able to fly every single day. So if the requirement is that you have to have flown that day to camp that night, you might find people in an awkward situation where We have a
Okay.
thunderstorm that day. So is there some
Yeah,
flexibility on
Totally.
that
It's more like,
stipulation?
I'm coming up for 5 days and I plan to fly all 5 days.
Yep,
Not, I'm coming up for 5 days and I'm going to fly 1 day.
agreed. Sounds good.
Yeah. Any other?
I like the boundaries that you set. I think those are smart. And I agree that it's not our job to make them profitable, but I do want to point out that it's our mission to support young aviators.
Totally agree.
Mary, do you have any deliberation points you want to make?
I do. I agree with what you're saying, and in terms of to support up-and-coming pilots. And I'm hoping that we do safe sport, that you have to do that there is control on that, because there's some history that was a little more flexible that I don't want to ever see happen again. And I see in your face, you don't either.
I'll keep my comment.
In terms of the water, maintenance and care, I know that we're spending a fair amount of staff time assessing the well and its capability. And if it does not pass code, I don't want lessor being responsible to fix the well. And so that's a hard over for me, because the way it's written is we would be responsible for that well. And so if you have to bring in a water truck for the ballast or for the, for drinking water, that's on you. That's not on us. And you need to write that in the lease, that we are not responsible if that well is not acceptable for drinking water. In terms of private pilots, seasonal employees, and volunteer number, that could address that. And if we are limiting the campfires and the barbecues, that also addresses that. And I guess those would be my issues. I think
I want to
you-
add one more, if
Yeah.
I can. Camping, I do a lot of camping in my van. I'm always looking at the rules and regs, and there's a max number of vehicles per site as well.
That's true.
So that would be, like, you have to get the group site if you have more than, those kinds of things should be incorporated into this. Max RV size, how many vehicles, how many people per site. That's it.
For me, it would be very easy to support the employee camping. That would be super easy. And in fact, that was what I thought we were going to be asked. So when the bigger thing came up, I was sort of caught off guard by that. Based on the conversation and what we've heard from you, I feel like there are a million things that we want to sort out, which concerns me because I'm not sure how a motion would even look for this.
I'm working on it.
So
Josh is going to write it.
that's
that's
my
mine?
concern because we're being asked to consider one of three things: do nothing, employee, or some other.
We're not limited to those three.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that we've got those considerations here, so we're not.
And I think we all are supportive of the idea of employees, because employee housing is brutal. And that employees, they could be there for longer than 14 days. That's your primary people, right?
Well, can we actually, on that note, do we have consensus that we are in support at least
Theory.
In theory, of employee.
of employee?
Yeah, and I think
But
since
define
Josh, you're
employee.
taking notes on this, employee can stay longer.
But define employee, because what I'm hearing is, you got somebody from Hollister for a weekend, and you're W-2ing them, so they're an employee, but you also have other people who are volunteers. It's fuzzy.
You get, our position is kind of, we've been bent over on this for decades, and we're not into it.
Yeah. And, but understanding, I mean, if you had an employee that's, you know, monitoring the site. And
Camp host.
yeah, camp host, who's, that person is a valuable employee, and needs to be on site.
Well, I'm not sure we should dictate that he has to have
Yeah.
a camp host, but, you know, if I roll into a campground and the first one I see is the camp host, I'm like, oh, I got to keep my dogs on the leash. You know what I mean? And if there isn't one, it's a lot more flexible. So, I'm a frequent camper.
Good points, good
Uh-huh.
points.
Okay, so it sounds like employee only, we're close to being able to figure that one out. And we have a considerable jump to get to something bigger than that, not the least of which is defining who that is, right? And when they would be eligible for that. Would it be insane to think that we move with the employee and then decide if we are going to add the everybody layer at another point in time?
I would never say everybody, but I would support their clientele.
But what I'm saying is that, like, if from my understanding from this, there is a time issue with them with regard to opening in the season. So
Do we not feel
especially
like-
with the employee aspect, because they have to get some commitments with employees. If we were to move forward with that tonight and green light that, and then determine all of these different things, and then come back and say if we're gonna add that on, is that manageable? Because otherwise, I'm not sure how we're gonna get to a
Yeah,
motion.
I'm good with that, with my, got to get the porta potty closer, you know, those certain things. Max size, that would be universal for anyone that stayed there.
You don't think I mean, it feels a bit
I think we could do
more
it.
in the weeds than maybe I would like to be, but at the same time, these are critical items. Do you not feel that we could just knock these out right now and save ourselves the time and save them the time in the future?
You could try that.
I might try it.
You could make a motion and see if you get a second, and
If we could
vote.
also, based on the guidance of Teresa's comments, Mary's, and others, based on what you want to see additionally in there as requirements, we could redraft that and bring that back to you at the next meeting so you see the exact terminology, and then you can decide on the flexibility of what employee means or what customer means at that time, based on some further discussions with us and TTSA.
But we can
But
send
you
him
can
away.
give him the guidance now that you can count on employees as long as we can work out these details. And that may give you the flexibility to at least start planning for your employees.
Does
and
it? I
Give
mean,
us
that's my
time to
question.
actually draft out those details.
Does it give you the flexibility to do that?
Good question.
If we promise.
This is a great step forward, and I appreciate all of your feedback, and all of it sounds great, and it's what I need to make a better proposal that could include my clients. But I appreciate all the guidance. So I like the trailer size limit. I like the porta potty out there. I like the defining the number of sites. All these things can either be in the lease or in a letter of agreement, and we can have that. We can begin drafting that right away.
And cancel at any time, not at any time, but for any reason. I'm
Put a
okay.
30-day clause in there.
I
which
can
is pretty standard.
totally live with
Yeah.
seasonally. If we say yes in June, I'm not going to say in July you're out, but
Yeah, I would suggest a 1 year, right, or a season, so that they have the ability
But
to
I
have
don't
the
want
confidence.
them to have
Certainly.
to.
Improve it, you know.
Certainly, year by year is fine. That's fine for us.
So we're good? We're gonna,
Just some clarity in terms of employees, volunteers, private pilots.
All the stuff we
That's
go
what
through.
we're gonna hash.
We're going to bring back, after work with Ron and his team, some further definition around what those categories are, so you can consider that in a written format with details.
perfect.
Shall I?
Perfect.
Shall you what?
Do you want me to motion this?
I think we don't need a motion. I think
No, we're
we've
not.
made the decision to just
I
let,
see the verbiage from the lawyer.
Okay.
yeah.
Easy.
We're okay with direction. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Item number 8, Resolution 2025-02, opposing local social, economic, and safety impacts that will result from federal funding cuts. Who are
I'll
we?
just introduce this last board meeting, the board, at the beginning of our special meeting, considered this, a previous version of this. You elected not to move on this one, gave some direction to make some revisions to that. We have gone in there and made those revisions that I think represented the guidance given to the board, so you can have further consideration of whether or not you wanted to pass this resolution. The board did pass the resolution 2025-1, and that's on wildfire. This one is on the topic that's written there. So if that's enough for introduction, I'll turn over the board if this meets your intent from guidance last time for consideration.
Thank you. Let's, actually, Teresa, if we could start with you, because you were not here the last time we had this
Yeah.
before us. Tell us where you're at with these things.
Well, a couple things. I think there's no reason not to do it, although I hear Greg has an issue with the word tariff. I heard that rumor. But I also think, unfortunately, it's not going to make a difference at all. So why would we? But then again, why wouldn't we? So I'm going to defer to you guys and I'll go with the majority because it makes no difference in the real world.
Mary, go for it.
I was very happy with the whereases related to our airport district and our funding. That was a good capture to put that in there. And, you know, you're probably right, but you gotta try something.
Kat?
I'm good with the way it's written.
Is that me now?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Killjoy.
I feel that this is outside of our lane. I feel like this is outside of our mission. Given the tone and tenor of conversation everywhere with regard to politics right now, I do not feel inclined to stir the pot, particularly for something that I don't feel will be particularly impactful. I feel it brings undue attention to us. I don't support it.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Do we have any further deliberation on this item?
What do you think? You haven't said
Oh, I haven't, you're right, I haven't said anything. I feel a few things. And I wish that I could be more, yeah. I agree with Greg that it does start to feel like it's going a little outside of our lane. I also feel that the situation that we are in right now might call for everybody doing everything they can. I agree that this is not going to do anything. I am concerned that if we don't pass it, it looks like we are deliberately having an issue with other language that's in here. And I do feel like if we do pass it, that it might diminish our, what I believe was a true commitment to the fire one that we passed, well, when we weren't here for that. I'm inclined to go along with it just because I'm just not sure that I have the stomach to not push back on pretty concerning things. At the same time, recognizing that it feels like outside of our lane. That's my take on it.
It'll be on the record for posterity.
What impact do you think that may or may not have?
We're gonna blame it on you because you're the new one.
I mean, I agree with you more than anything else that's been said here. It is outside of our lane. I don't like mission creep. I don't want to be, you know, are we going to take some heat? Is it going to be in the Sierra Sun that we weren't in support and everyone else in town and in our district was, and every other entity has said, you know, this, and we're the outliers? We might as well put MAGA on the building, you know? But I also don't want to put a target on our back. I know in the budget cycle I said I want a worst case scenario. Well, this could be it. right? This could be it. I know that our funding doesn't come from the feds, but if the feds cut off the state because we're California and this county takes, you know what I mean? Anything could happen. And so if this was, say, 1,500 years ago, they'd be coming in here with swords hacking off our heads because we were in support of, or anti what's going on at the federal level. So I am personally inclined to agree with Greg, but I'm not going to fight anybody on, you three seem to be the majority, so.
I don't think anybody feels that strongly about it, one way or the other, it seems like. I mean, there are pros and cons. I think, as David said, I think, you know, especially with the FAA language that wasn't in there before, you know, it's an opportunity to say what we need to say, whether anybody reads it or cares.
Challenge with the FAA language is it feels like a bit of a shoe-in, right? It's 2 paragraphs on the FAA on a resolution that otherwise has a fairly different focus. So one concern around that is it still comes back to this.
List from the communist days, right? Is that what you're thinking?
It's just that, yeah, it's sort of like, well, we have stuff in there for the FAA, but this isn't fundamentally a resolution around the FAA. This is a very broad resolution that has 2 paragraphs on it related to the FAA. I don't think that fools anybody, that we're sort of taking a focused approach on this.
I think another way to look at that is I read through this and it talks about all these different things everywhere.
Yeah.
Everything it talks about is in our district. These are all our people. So it might be speaking of them from a different perspective, but
That's right.
they are still constituents of the airport. So there is, that tie-in is comfortable to me.
That's fair.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Anybody else, any thoughts or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-02 of the Truckee Tahoe Airport District, identifying local, social, economic, and safety impacts that will result from federal funding cuts, and waive the reading.
For a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries.
Friction.
Get it over with.
All right, board committee assignments and ad hoc committee reports.
Starting with housing, I believe. Lauren, do you have anything to add to the report?
No, it's pretty, I wrote a pretty in-depth summary over what was discussed at our housing meeting last Wednesday. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer to the best of my ability, because most of it is on the TTUSD Alder Creek site feasibility report that we just saw for the very first time, and there's still much more to deliberate and discuss. I might have more in May if you have any more specific questions.
Thank you, Lauren. Jeff, on river revitalization.
Everything's in the report. The only thing I'll add is last night, town council met for the 3 catalyst projects. 2 of the catalyst projects had partnership agreements that were crafted, presented to town council. Town council enthusiastically approved both of them. The 3rd catalyst project, that partnership agreement will likely go to town council at their next council town meeting. So good progress.
Thank you, Jeff. On Climate Transformation Alliance, our next quarterly meeting will be held on April 11th over in Kings Beach. It's the first meeting we've had the opportunity to hold over inside the basin by the lake. We're focused on talking about transportation in and around the North Lake Tahoe area. I'll be moderating a panel of a cross-section of transportation professionals, ground transportation, talking about impacts on the community and different programs and activities taking place here within the basin and outside the basin. And that's all update I had in that, unless Greg or, yep.
I unfortunately am out of town on the 11th, so if there's another board member that would like to attend that meeting. No pressure, just I'm unavailable. What'd you say?
I'm out.
You're out?
I can go, if nobody else wants to go.
Great, I'll forward you the additional details in the meeting then, David.
Okay.
The last one of those are airport community team meeting. Next month will be focused on apron A2 reconstruction impacts to the airfield and operating community here at the Truckee Tahoe Airport.
All right, any board questions?
I'm sorry, we had one, no, the last one on transportation, so nothing further than what has been reported.
Any questions from the board? Any public comment? We have a motion.
Is there a motion?
No motion. Okay, then we're done with that.
That, the GM report.
The general manager's report.
Thank you, President Diamond. I don't have anything additional from my written report, but I did just hand out a document to update you on the Alpha 2 reconstruction project. It's on the screen as well for those viewing. The Alpha 2, Apron 2, Alpha 2, is the reconstruction project we are considering that's in the red area on the diagram there. If you go to the next page, the project on the left-hand column there includes 26,500 square feet of apron complete reconstruction from the current 9 inches to the required 18 inches of subgrade and pavement. We currently have that project out for bid. We plan on getting those project bids back here by the next board meeting in April on the 23rd, so the board can consider those bids and potentially award a bid to a contractor. Based on that price that comes in, the award, and the board's decision on that, we will go out to the financial community, and based on our previous solicitation, we'll have a formal solicitation on getting quotes back for a loan based on the price that is coming out on the bids, so that we could either fully borrow against that project or have some option within there for the full amount or a lesser amount based on the full project price. And we'll be able to bring that back to the board for consideration on the May 28th board meeting. We do plan on July 1st completion date. There'll be some options that are in the bid package currently, either do 1 phase or 2 phases for the project, and giving the contractors an option to bid on that, to give us some options on what we finally select for this. So that's just more of an update for the board of where we're at in that process. And there's 2 significant decision points for the board ahead, and that's 1, awarding the bid, and 2, deciding whether or not we're going to borrow money and how much. And so those are coming up soon. I didn't have any other updates unless there's questions on the other items in the management report.
Just a quick question. What's the concrete snow melt apron?
That is part of the overall project, and that is out on the area right behind us here on the ramp, and that's the shady area here that is
that's right.
historically
Right out of
ice
the walkway.
sheet.
Yep.
That, yes, yep. And so we'll have the full details as part of the bids of what that cost from the contractors as the proposal come in. Right.
In terms of phase 1 or 2, is that to do only a partial of it?
Phase 1 or 2 is either to do it all at once as 1 phase project. We'll close up the whole area, they'll get it all done, or in 45 days. A 2-phase projects, we give them 60 days. They do half of it in 1 phase and then half of it in the other phase. So we have part of the ramp open. So we're giving the contractors an option in their bidding and what would be more effective for them and what it looks like for price for us to take 45 days or 60 days to do the project.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? We're good? All right, AvCom.
Any legal updates before we do AvCom?
Yeah, just really briefly, I know the board received a copy of the Brown Act teleconference flow chart that we had distributed and kind of made available as a resource for directors for all of our clients. Happy to answer any questions on it if you had any. I did want to emphasize one point. It's something we've discussed previously as recently as our January legal update, is if you are using the traditional teleconference, so that's the situation where you're calling in from a location which is listed on the agenda, there is a requirement that you participate in the entire meeting. And as a reminder, the idea there is if it's listed on the agenda as a teleconference location, it's a public location in the same way this building is. And so it's important that even if you may be on vacation, many states or countries away, and the likelihood of someone attending from that location is very low, it is still technically a requirement. And so it's important that you stay for the full meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
None. Questions? No. Okay.
This is the general manager. This is
AvCom.
So under the general manager report, just had a legal update. Next would be the AvCom report, and then finance report would be after that.
then, yeah, just, on your general manager report, the noise and emission symposium, that's item 3. Are you?
I had some comments in my written report, but we do have it as a report out on the agenda for conferences and attendance from staff and board. I was going to just cover it briefly then,
Okay.
with the idea that we'd add it as a formal agenda item to the next regular board meeting.
And then the burn bot demonstration, will you send out, like, if it doesn't happen or it does happen? Because I'd like to come and see.
Yes, I'll make sure the board gets an invitation on their calendars for the April 22nd date that we are planning on right now for
Whether
9
it
a.m. in the
happens
morning.
and
But if it changes, we'll let everybody know,
That's,
yes.
yeah,
Yep.
because that could be interesting to see. Thank you.
Jeff.
For the AvCon report, nothing significant. I would like to just to foot stomp the very first paragraph. We had a really good meeting with multiple STEAM stakeholders in the area last week, and we'll be holding monthly meetings, at least for the first couple months, and after that, maybe every 60 to 90 days, depending. But it was a really good forum to get all the different stakeholders all in the same room, and everyone just enjoyed being in the same room because everyone's pulling on these oars, and right now there's not a real good synchronizing entity other than the schools, but they kind of stay in the school lane. So it was a really good meeting. We had our first Fly Safe event, 65 pilots in attendance. The second Fly Safe of the year is actually tomorrow night. Howard Donner is the presenter, and it's how to staying found if you're in the backcountry, whether you're in an aircraft or on skis. So it should be a pretty good presentation. We also opened up the hangar wait list again. That was closed for a long time, so you'll see the numbers on the hangar wait list growing here in the near future.
Question on the Fly Safe. Do you, the emergency landing maps that we have, is that something that you touch on?
It is. Tomorrow's, I don't think it will. But yeah, it's in the hangars, the posters we have in hangars, there's QR codes for all those. But yes.
But you have some pilots come who are not hangar tenants.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
Having those brochures available and
Right.
saying, hey, just don't forget about.
We will. We can have, when we, I would encourage any board member to show up to the Fly Safe events. They're usually pretty good. In fact, they're always outstanding. But it's not just Howard Donner talking about staying found in the backcountry. As it's going, David opens up the meeting and probably talks, 5 to 7 minutes to kind of to hear what's going on, talks about noise. We have slides, running beforehand of all the things that we want to be talking about and communicating. So it's an outstanding event to have 65 local pilots, whether hangar tenants or folks flying in here, to talk about the things that we really care about with high value content. They get something out of it too. So we'll add that. I think that's a really good foot stomper for tomorrow's topic.
It's just one more piece of information that is very much valuable for safety. And to touch it every time is not harmful, because we all forget.
Any other questions for Rob? Or for Jeff? No, we're good. Kelly.
Just a few highlights from February's financials. Our FBO revenue is up 84,000. Total revenue, we're at 6.6 million year to date. The budget of 6 million, so we're up 600,000 increase in property taxes that we received versus what we budgeted, and a little bit in the FBO. Total expenses are 1.9. We're down 676,000 for net income of 4.2 million. A couple of fun accounting housekeeping updates. We are live with NetSuite. We love it. It is amazing. We are working, like we talked earlier about the reporting. We'll get an update for the next board meeting on the monthly service bills and fees. But everything. Excuse me? Okay.
But it is specific to that. This report as well doesn't have as many line items as the old one. I'd love the whole thing.
This is the same one that we've been getting all along?
Yeah, Teresa, I'll follow up with you to get a better idea of what you're looking for in that, and we're happy to deliver that.
The only thing we don't have currently is the balance sheet, because we're working through the rest of the audit, and we don't have the 12/31 audited financials yet. So once that's in there, then there'll be that extra one sheet.
I'm talking about right now you have a new category that's other expenses or something like that. Let me see that.
This is last month that you're talking about, where you have.
Yeah, operating expenses. I just like to see what those are, category-wise, to see where we're under budget, where we're over budget, that type of thing.
A little more specific.
Yeah, just a little bit more if you can produce it, if the software will produce it.
Sure.
This is the one. This one. The
Sorry,
last
I can't
page.
see that far away.
Yeah, the last page
Before the pie charts.
Before the pie charts.
Right, that's the same report we've been looking at for a couple of years now. It's what's in the budget document. So the operating expenses are broken down by the various categories: cost of goods sold, payroll, operating expenses.
Is there any
community
report that this software can produce that breaks out operating expenses, for example? I don't, I understand that payroll is in benefits, but operating expenses is a really big category.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have it? If it has it, great, I'd love to see it.
Sure, if that's what the board would like to see, you let me know.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We definitely look at that on a staff perspective in a much more
you don't have to
detailed
build
fashion.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's something we have. It's not something that needs to be built. It's something we do look at in more detail. Happy to share that detail with you.
Awesome.
That'd be great. And in that same context where we have FBO revenue, I'd like to see fuel revenue and
Yep.
hangar, landing fee revenue separated out. It's particularly since we've now changed how we're doing fuel. And I want to see how the hangar revenue change, specific on this line, because that's our two big FBO units.
Yeah, and I had a clarifying question. Did I read your report right, that you're putting in like a percentage of the tax revenues as opposed to where we go months with none and then a big chunk?
Right now, we're recording them when we actually get it. So that's why it's trued up this year. When you look
Got
at this
it.
year to last year,
Yeah.
we budgeted that way, and then we received the monies in the first quarter.
Got it, thanks.
So NetSuite, our original contract started in June. We did a one-year contract with them. We are going to look at a 5-year going forward with the same pricing as the 1 year, which is great. So keep an eye out in May for that. Will be on the agenda to approve. Our audit is in the home stretch. We are hoping to have it at the board meeting next month. And still working through the insurance claim for the hangar damage. I feel like we're getting
closer and closer here to getting some funding for that. And we are switching to the company that provides our directors and officers insurance is Alliant. They're the ones who just provided the new property insurance, and we're working with them like right now, literally, to bind liability, cyber, and auto with them as well. So we're kind of switching to a different broker to do that. And we should have those finalized, I'm hoping, by the end of the week. Any questions on any of that?
No.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Oh, and one more thing. Thank you. David and I talked earlier, and he is our internal auditor. So we are going to start next month and get back to doing that. Normally we recognize someone in the president, vice president process, but we were talking about how it would be really great for David as a new president, and we can go through and figure out all the financial stuff.
Okay. Does anybody have a problem with that?
No. No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on the GM report? Any portion of the GM report? No public comment. Future agenda priorities and meeting management. Review of upcoming meetings, rolling agenda.
I think this was an item President Diamond talked about last time of wanting to maybe update this language of really trying to address the agenda items while they're taking place for any modifications or direction. So this would be, the current rolling agenda does not reflect a couple things right now. And we will be updating that after this meeting today to allow us to revisit items from today's action, including TTSA's item, our noise agenda item, and then we'll be adding in our Alpha 2 project items here for the next 2 months as well. The one that's not on here right now, or maybe a modification to this, is currently we have a May 6th date, 2025, for our second strategic plan workshop. As was requested by the board in the first strategic plan workshop, there was desire to hold a workshop that perhaps didn't include our consultants, that was really directed towards the board having a conversation about strategic interpretations of direction of the board. How do we use tax revenue? What's the priority for the community? Broad concepts. And so the board request was to set up a separate workshop date. And talking to Ag-New-Bec today, they were recommending that we use this date, May 6th, that we currently have on the calendars, to use as our own internal workshop date, that we run ourselves and perhaps involve Ag-New-Bec in a listening role, so that we could have our own internal conversation about priorities. And maybe I could turn it back over to you, President Diamond, about that topic.
Yeah, that was just it. It was like, before we go further with Ag-New-Bec, do we want to have that meeting? Kat brought this up in the strategy meeting about philosophical differences that we have that guide the bigger decisions that we have. And could we have a discussion so that we better understood one another and understood those perspectives about why somebody would want to do one thing and somebody else would want to do another thing, and yet at the same time we're all saying we're here for the community. So it's like how to better understand one another with regard to that core perspective. And that would be in the May meeting that we had with Ag-New-Bec. Instead of doing that with Ag-New-Bec, we would do it by ourselves, as Rob said, possibly with Shauna observing, and then we would reschedule the next Ag-New-Bec meeting. So the question is, you want to have that meeting. Second question is, do you want to have it in place of the next Ag-New-Bec meeting?
You just said, so we better understand each other. Is there a potential outcome that we would use, or is that just,
It's kind of, it'll definitely be out of context for you because you weren't at the strategy meeting, but we did, while we were at the strategy meeting, we were talking more high level about the different things we were doing at that meeting. And then it was brought up that we do have very core philosophical differences. Like, for example, the example that was used is tax money comes into the airport's account. Is it the airport's money? Is it still the community's money? That was one example of a philosophical difference of opinion that we might have, that we could discuss and better understand one another in terms of knowing when somebody says something, where they're coming from on that.
well, and I know I wasn't there, but is there some measurable outcome that will be useful for us in the future? Or is this like, let's go have a beer?
I think it's not quite let's go have a beer. I think it's more, do we fully understand one another?
And
I'm not sure about measurable outcome on any meeting of that type, like the one we have. I don't know that we can expect a measurable outcome. I think it's more about culture nurturing.
If you want to put a metric on it, I would guess it might be a reduced discussion time on more contentious topics. I'm just hypothesizing here, but I think that would be the goal, is like, if we understand each other further, we may not feel that we need to belabor our perspective or our viewpoint because Mary already understands what I'm trying to say, because we've already kind of put in this groundwork time. So maybe the metric is reduced discussion time on topics, but that's a guess.
Okay, and then the only comment is if Shauna's gonna listen, we're not paying her for that, right?
That's.
We would pay our consultants, yes.
The decision would be, do you want Shauna there? And then.
I mean, if this is our discussion, I don't need her there, but whatever you guys wanna do.
So she offered, and so we haven't answered her yet on that. I think it was just something for our consideration, whether we take our own notes and we convey those to the AgniBec team, or we invite them in to listen in. That was kind of what was proposed, with no real decision behind it.
which, that begs the question, they took a lot of notes. We had sticky notes. We
Yes.
had a lot of, when are we getting?
So I just got those today from the meeting, and I plan on using that, and we need to build in Teresa's perspective on that, who wasn't there, to add the full flavor of perspectives the board provided in sticky notes about what the priorities were for you. But I'm ready to share those out with the board as feedback from the first meeting, but also use that as a starting place for our workshop internal about where folks are on major issues. Right now, it's not complete. It's complete for what happened, but it's not complete because we didn't have all 5 board members.
Are we going to see it?
I'm happy to share it with you.
Yeah.
Yep, just literally an hour from the meeting, I got it, so happy to share it out.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The first time around, when we worked with them 2 years ago, we were told that we would go through a decision-making exercise, just like what we're talking about, philosophically, what goes into your decision-making. And we never got around to it. We just ran out of time. So this would be kind of circling back to that, because we had originally planned to do it.
I definitely think we should have the meeting. I don't know if we need a yard duty, but it's up to you guys.
All right, do we have agreement that we should have a meeting?
Yeah.
And we have agreement we should have it in place of the AgniBec
Or
on that
have a
day?
doodle for the April. We're not doing one.
No, we're, to avoid having to do that, we've already got that other date reserved.
Okay.
So, and they thought that it would be beneficial from their process for us to have had this conversation. So they suggested we take that date and then we'll figure out another date for them. So we've already got the date scheduled. Question is, do you want to do AgniBec or do you want to do our own thing?
Who's sort of Rob's curating this conversation? You're curating this?
I'm not, no, because I'm one of the victims.
David volunteered me to moderate or
Moderate, that's the word,
facilitate the board's
yes.
discussion
Okay.
as an internal process.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
And I think I'm seeing this as our new 311, or our new, what are our philosophical views, how we
Yeah.
manage and maintain, and we need to get some clarity around that. And
Yeah.
ties into, you know, financing or pay, and
Yeah.
long-term budget view, all those sort of things.
Great. So there's a measurable outcome.
You like this idea?
Yeah.
You like this idea? You like this idea? Do we want Shauna there? Yes or no? Yes. Do you want Shauna there?
I'm ambivalent.
Do you want Shauna there?
No.
Ambivalent.
Okay, no Shauna. We'll do on that date, and then we'll reschedule for them.
So we'll plan on the May 6th date for our own internal workshop. I'll be circulating after today's meeting the results of the previous workshop we just had, and then working with the president to draft a plan for this workshop that we share ahead of time, so we all go into it with the same baseline for discussion. And then we will doodle pull out the next 2 workshops with Agnew Beck over the next couple of months is the plan.
And it's a public meeting, agendized, the
It
whole
is a
deal.
public meeting, it is agendized.
So if Shauna decides she wants to listen in for useful.
We do
if
not
it's-
plan on broadcasting it, though. So.
Not broadcast.
Okay.
She could come watch.
If she
She's a
feels it's
public
valuable to the future discussions.
Okay, any public comment on future agenda priorities? Closing public comment. Staff board member conference attendance reports.
One other thing,
Wait, we're not moving on.
The store trucking thing.
Yes, we're going to add them to the agenda for
Excellent.
April. Yes.
yes.
You had another question about this one, Mary?
Well, on the review of upcoming meetings or the review of this meeting, and we used to, you know, what are the 5 takeaways that you're leaving with?
Yeah, so my guidance.
I don't see
Yeah,
that, you know.
no. So we talked about this in the last meeting too, about after each action item that we had reviewed what happened. And I apologize that I did not push that, although I feel like
Things went, and that's why I'm
As when
asking
things
for it
went.
now.
I would rather not do the review at the end of the meeting. I would rather be in the habit of doing the review at the end of the
But
item.
since we did not do it during the meeting, I would request Rob's input at this point. What are the 5 takeaways or the 3 takeaways that he has now?
All right, what's on action 5, wildfire mitigation? What are we going to do? What's our plan?
My plan is to enter into agreements with those that were approved by the board, and in April, bring back potentially additional projects that were not included in today's that are ready to be moved forward, that may be above the $2 million threshold, but for the board's consideration.
LAFCO election.
That's
As directed.
Okay. And the soaring, I think we had a big conversation about that, so you're going to.
As directed, bringing back a draft that includes option for employees only, what an employee is, and then for customers.
Gotcha. And then on the resolution, we passed.
Resolution as is.
And public input was also from Carol Maher in terms of Kid Zone, because she's been coming and asking, are we wanting to agendize to talk about that?
Well, any director can have something added to the agenda.
Yeah.
So at any point in time, if one of you wanted to have something added, you could contact Rob or myself and say, I want to have that added.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk with Carol. She did contact me as well about the Kid Zone topic and agenda. And my feedback was that the board has had the first workshop of strategic planning. We didn't get to that level of detail. In the next 2 workshops, we will get to that level of detail about the future. And certainly that is one of the topics that will be discussed. And so until the board has a chance to kind of work through that, to resolve positions on concepts of engagement with projects for the community at a strategic level, that could be one of them. That I represented that it probably would not be an item on the board's agenda until you got through that process, and it'd probably be a 2026 budget item. So I suggest there's not immediate action the board would likely take anytime in the next few months.
Unless you decide you want it on, like David said.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll leave that for you to decide and then contact to have it put on.
I just, what I'm hearing is that they
They're begging.
They're begging.
What I don't want to do is talk about that as an agenda item right now, because it's not agendized. So if we want to treat it properly, we should put it on an agenda, have a discussion about it, but I'm afraid we're about to get into a discussion about it, and it's not agendized.
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I will have a conversation with Rob.
Perfect. Now, item 12, staff and board member conference attendance reports. Gee, anybody go to a conference?
You want to start or I'll start?
I'll start just by introducing, I did have comments in my management report that did talk about the staff and board member and member of the community that did attend the noise conference. It was the first time for me attending that. It was very insightful and informative at many different levels, from a PhD exact science level of noise to just a community perspective of organized communities of people that were interested in changing the noise parameters around airports, both locally and nationally. So it was very informative. I think we haven't had a chance to meet after that as a staff or as a board representatives, community representatives to discuss that. I'd like to take the opportunity to have that meeting in the next 2 weeks here and talk about what steps we're recommending as a group that attended that conference to bring back to the board to facilitate a discussion item at the April meeting to talk about next steps. Hey, Greg.
Yeah, second, overall, what Rob said, I really enjoyed going. I guess I would expect to go again in future years. There's a lot of airports that have, frankly, a much bigger impact than we do, and there are a lot of tools and resources and best practices that have been developed that we can tap into. So I'm really excited specifically about, potential options around improving our noise monitoring system. There's software, there's noise monitoring devices, there's quite a bit of capability there that I think we could tap into and get some more objective data on sort of the noise impact issue that we have. So I'm looking forward to sitting down and debriefing in more detail with Rob and Kay and having a more detailed outline to show all of you at the next meeting.
Anybody else got anything? No. Any staff other than Rob? All good? Any public comment on that? All right, any board member announcements? No board member announcements. All right.
I will be traveling April 3rd to 13th and not available whatsoever for that time. I don't know if that's something I need to report, but no. Okay, cool.
But it was nice of you.
I'm intentionally not bringing my Starlink.
Can I put those dates in the calendar?
You are welcome to. Yeah, you can invite me to them, and I will decline them.
Okay, our next regular meeting is April 23rd, 4:30 p.m. right here. Motion to adjourn.
May.
Second.
Second.
Yay! All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.